Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Mental Toughness and Body Show. My name is Rob Evans, and I'm your weight loss coach, health strategist, and internationally published author, helping take your life, your business, your health and fitness, body, and mindset from where you are to becoming absolutely unstoppable. And there's nothing more that I love is to interview people that have got a really successful background and got a really strong mindset. And I've got a really unique and great guest for you today. It's Frank McKinney. He's a real estate artist. He's a stuntman. He's a best-selling author and just a really amazing man. And today I'm talking to him about all his experiences with ultra marathons. Now, you just listen in carefully to this. We're doing it in two parts because we had such a great conversation. I'm just dividing it up into two sections. Have a listen to this, dig into it, because there are so many lessons that we can all take away from this. Frank probably has to be the number one mentally tough person that I've ever met. Incredible story. Please enjoy this. Have fun. Hi, Frank, and welcome to the Mental Toughness and Body Show. How are you today?
Well, I had to wake up and get really mentally tough and ready for this interview. I went to the gym. Now I'm a lot earlier than you. I'm whatever the time is here, 1:30, and I went to the gym at 4:30 to get pumped up for this.
Yeah, nice work. Well done. Well, Frank, there is such a big wow factor about so many aspects of your life, from your real estate artistry, best-selling author, and so forth. But today, being the Mental Toughness and Body Show, you are probably the toughest mentally person that I know. So I thought today we could drill into your Badwater ultramarathon experience. I've been doing so much reading about it and it just blows my mind. Now, I thought from everybody that's listening that may not have heard of the California's Badwater 135 before, could you perhaps give us a summary as to what that event is and why on earth you would want to go in it?
Okay, so for those of you watching, listening, close your eyes for a minute and imagine the toughest foot race in the world according to National Geographic. A race that starts at 282 feet below sea level, which is the lowest point in the Western Hemisphere, in the Death Valley Desert in July, which is the hottest month on Earth in Death Valley. Matter of fact, Death Valley set the record for the highest temperature ever on planet Earth at 134 degrees. So the start gun goes off at this lowest point in the Western Hemisphere, and you're running 135 miles non-stop. So you'll convert that to kilometers for me, but that's 135 miles non-stop in 125 to 130 degree heat over 3 mountain ranges on blacktop pavement. So we're not running in the sand where it's cooler. We're running on pavement that has exceeded over 200 degrees Fahrenheit. And you're having to traverse from below sea level to a mile above sea level, then back down to sea level, and then 6,000 feet above, and then back down, and then you finish at around 9,000 feet above sea level. So not only do you have the heat, but you have the elevation gain and the elevation loss, and you must complete this race within a 48-hour time period, or you're disqualified. The last bit I'd like to add is there are only 100 people that are invited. It's an invitation-only race. You have to have a resume to be invited. And from that start line, there are 25 on average countries, runners represented in 25 countries out of those 100 racers.
So just for some conversions there, yeah, that's about 217 kilometers. And over my side of the world, that's about 52 degrees. That is degrees Celsius. That is damn hot.
And it's nonstop. So
Yeah.
there's a misnomer that it's cooler in the desert in the nighttime. The last race that I raced in, which I did not finish, it didn't get below 114 degrees Fahrenheit. So, 45 degrees Celsius in the middle of the night. So yeah. You can imagine the excruciating pain that one has to endure. And by the way, I'm not a fast runner. I finish, my average finish time is around 44 hours. So I'm out there 2 to 3 days without sleeping, just relentlessly moving forward.
And so just to complete this once is an awesome feat. but tell us how many times you've completed it.
So there have been over 4,500 successful summits of Mount Everest. There are less than 1,000 people that have finished the Badwater Ultramarathon. That's how difficult it is. I have finished it 7 times. I have started the race 12 times. So that means I have failed to finish 5 times, but that hasn't kept me from going back. And that's part of the stuff we'll talk about on the mental side. But there have been, of the, let's say around 1,000 finishers of Badwater since 1981, when the race was official, there's been only about 14 people that have finished the race more times than 7 more times than I've finished it.
Yeah, incredible. What drove you initially to the event?
So the backstory is I believe we feel most alive when we experience extremes for the first time. And I booked a vacation in July in Death Valley, never hearing of the word ultramarathon in my life. I had never heard the word uttered in my life. I knew what a marathon was, but I didn't know what an ultramarathon was. So I booked this vacation. I was a 10K runner, like a fast twitch muscle. I was a tennis pro when I was younger, so I would run a 40-minute 10K. I was pretty quick. And I would go out and we booked our vacation. We'd land, get out of the car, drive from Death Valley, or drive from Las Vegas to Death Valley, and it's over 115 degrees. I put my shoes on. I go out for this run, this 6-mile run. After 4 miles, I was walking. After 5 miles, I was crawling, and I barely made it alive back to my hotel room. I had suffered heat exhaustion. I was this close to suffering heat stroke. When I went to the general store to buy Gatorade and bananas, I put the stuff down on the checkout counter, and the gentleman behind the counter says, "You better get back out there. You're in last place." And I say, "Well, what?" I mean, I'm flush in the face and I'm a little delirious. My eyes had already, dilated because of the heat exhaustion. I said, "Excuse me, what are you talking about?" He says, "The Badwater Ultramarathon. The last runner just passed here an hour ago. And if you don't hurry up, you will not make the cutoff." So you can imagine, what are you talking about? I'm not out here in a race. I'm out here on a vacation. He tells me about it.
Yeah.
I refer to this as the 3 I's in life. The letter I, insurmountable, incomprehensible, and impossible. The 3 I's laid themselves on my heart. That is impossible, incomprehensible, inconceivable that people run 135 miles where I could not finish 6 miles. Yeah. And he told me to go to the general store and buy a DVD called Running on the Sun. You can watch it on YouTube now, Running on the Sun. That was a documentary done on the race. Okay. And like a child who watches cartoons, the same cartoon over and over again, I watched that documentary. And a year to the day after I had that fateful 6-mile run, I was at the start line, having qualified to enter my first Badwater Ultramarathon in 2005.
Wow.
I had never, just to put in perspective, I had never run a marathon before running a 100-mile race to qualify to get into Badwater. I hired a coach. So this is the importance of a coach. Yeah. I watched that DVD. In that DVD was a woman who had finished the race 8 times at that time. She now has over 10 finishes. I watched that DVD. I hired her as my coach. And in 6 weeks, she got my mind ready to finish the 100-mile qualifying race that was required at the time. Now you have to have 3 100-mile races, and they have to be within the next year. Very hard to get into now. But back then, I needed 1 100-mile race to get in. She got my mind ready, and the body followed, to run a 100-mile qualifying race in 6 weeks from the time that I decided I wanted to do it.
Wow. That's impressive. And so before we dig into some of the detail, what took you back another 6 times? Well, obviously you went back another 11 times, but
I tell you what, I still hold very fast and true to that. We feel most alive when experiencing extremes for the first time, and each time I go there, it's a new experience for me. Yeah. It's spiritual. It's something that I have. I feel raw. I feel completely stripped of everything that I think means something to me. I'm never more closer to my wife because she's my crew chief. Yeah. During that time, I never feel closer to nature. I see why some of the most moving portions of the Bible are written in and or about the desert, because it just awakens the soul like nothing else. And I'm coming to the end of my physical ability to be able to go out there. But as they say, or as I say, get the mind right and the miles will follow. In business, get the mind right and the money will follow. But in this race, it's all about the mindset.
Yeah. And I know people can be listening to this and conjuring up some visions in their mind. And I'd really encourage people to go to your website. And you wrote a great piece called Life Lessons. And the images that are captured in there, I think if you could imagine mountains and roadways and sand on Mars, then this is what the Badwater looks like. And some of the incredible images there, I really feel what you say in terms of being spiritual. And I don't know, maybe there are just some unique places on earth where it just pulls out something different from within you. And all that you've got is nature and you and your mindset in those instances.
Yeah, here's the thing. I mean, everybody watching your program or listening, I am not a gifted ultra runner. I struggle with every footfall. And during that race, there are over 350,000 times my foot will hit the ground. That tells you, you can do the math if you're really into math, how short my stride is. So, I converted my mind into an ultra runner before my body got there. As I said, I was a fast twitch runner. But some of these guys that run this race are, they run 100-mile races every other weekend. Yeah. I like the sport. I don't love it, but I love that race. And having been exposed to the toughest foot race in the world, again, according to National Geographic, I'm not drawn to any other race that even compares to this. But for the average person, and I am an average person, I'm in an average fitness level. I finished toward the end of the pack, but through converting my mind and really having a coach who helped me believe in bite-sized, like if I were to tell each and every one of you watching the program or ask you, do you think you could run 135 miles? The answer, like my answer was no. That's not possible. But could you run 1 mile? Could Rob, could you run 1 mile?
Absolutely.
Could you run 1 mile? Could you just do that 135 times?
Yeah.
The answer is you start to be able to get your mind around something that is insurmountable, incomprehensible, and impossible. So for me, there are 6 checkpoints in this race: mile 17, mile 42, mile 72, mile 90, mile 131, and then the finish line. I run 6 different races. I run to the first checkpoint and I'll often change my clothes, change my shoes. I'll run to the next checkpoint, change my music. By the time I'm 20 hours in, which is usually around the 72nd mile, I have actually, and there's a little hotel there, like a half-star hotel. It's a place where horror movies could be shot. It's so bad. But I will actually go in after the checkpoint. I will change into my pajamas for a half an hour to trick my mind into believing that the day's over. We're going to sleep. I'll put my pajamas on. I'll lay down on this bed for half an hour, take them off, put my running clothes back on, start the race over again. And when I've broken it down into those little bite-sized pieces, and my mind was, I was in the mile that I was in. Like I wasn't thinking ahead to the mile number 5 when I was in mile number 4. Those were my more successful races. Of my 5 DNFs, did not finish, 3 of them had to do with my mind not being in the right place. One, I had a heart issue. I had an arrhythmia that it was really weird, and I had to stop there. And then another one, my blisters, actually the bottom of my feet peeled off. Both feet peeled off to where I was running on hamburger, and I just couldn't move faster than like a mile and a half an hour, and I didn't make the cutoff. But the other 3 times, this wasn't in tune, and I suffered for it. I mean, I look back and I did all this training, and my mind wasn't right. So your name of your program meant the mental toughness. I mean, that's everything in life and in business today. And so this race really is a metaphor. For those of you out there who have that insurmountable, incomprehensible, and impossible thing lay itself on your heart, what are you going to do? Are you going to do what most people do when they ask me about, why would you do that, Frank? Well, because I could and I can. I converted my mind into believing that I can get through. It's 48 hours of hell, and one way or another, Rob, it's over in 2 days. The training goes on for months and months and months, and that's like, at this stage of my life, I'm not sure I can get up again for another 6 months worth of. I mean, we'll talk about my training regimen. It's brutal.
Yeah. So I got so many questions for you, and I don't want to jump ahead, but perhaps that's a good spot to maybe talk about some of the training. And so it's about 6 months out that you start to really get serious about the training for it.
4.5 months to me is perfect. As long as I have a good base. If I bring a good base to 4.5 months, and 4.5 months, oddly enough, is 135 days. So in my most successful years, like I have tried training 8 months and I overtrained and I blew up. I've tried going there 2 months trained and I was undertrained and I didn't make it. So 4.5 months seemed perfect. But I mean, if you're watching, you can imagine some of the training, but some of the bizarre stuff that I do. So I live in Florida. It's flat. I referenced during the Badwater race, there is one climb that's 16 miles at 5 to 7% grade.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody runs that. You're power walking that whole thing. And the finish line, actually, from mile 122 to 135, it's a half a marathon, is over 10% grade. After you've beaten the crap out of yourself, you're going up, and it's on pavement.
Yeah, so, it's like a 45-degree angle.
It's you've seen the picture. So you're pulling the skin off the bottom of your feet as you're trying to go up this hill. So what I do to simulate the hills is I have a tire. You can go to my social media feed, the Frank McKinney on Instagram, and you'll see a picture of a tire harness that I make. So I have a tire with a harness and a rope, and I go to a bridge. That's all I got here is a bridge, over our waterway, and I will pull that tire back and forth. I have done a 24-hour tire pull before.
Oh, wow.
Nonstop. I mean, I stop and eat and go to the bathroom, but for the most part, 24 hours of pulling it. Now, that was once, but I'll do 15 miles pulling that tire behind me, back and forth. To get ready for the heat, I have a sauna here at my house that has a treadmill inside of it.
Oh, wow.
So I'll turn that thing up to 150 degrees. I'll put the elevation of the treadmill up a bit. And what I'm really doing is I'm training my body to assimilate water through the lining of my stomach, because that's how we hydrate. It doesn't just sit. It's how quickly you can assimilate water through the lining of your stomach. I have to go through, or I do go through, about 12 gallons of water, 14 gallons of water over the period of the race. So that's more or less 7 gallons of water a day. Try drinking 1 gallon today.
Yeah.
Hard. So I'm training my body not only to withstand the heat, but to ingest that much fluid without being sick.
Yeah.
And then I'll do an all-night training run where I'll start at 8 p.m. and I'll run all the way through the night. And I'm not running the whole way, by the way. I'm walking plenty of it. And there's a science to walking and running and how you can recover while you're walking. But I'll run from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. Just to get the mind. See, I can train for the heat. I can train for the elevation change. I can train for the miles. I can train for everything but the sleep deprivation. That part, I can't train. Nobody can train for sleep deprivation. It's very hard.
Yeah. So in that type of heat, how often are you drinking and feeding yourself, and what sort of things are you eating? I know it varies over the race, but.
No, it's actually like a military operation. So with my size, I'm about 185 pounds, I'm pretty tall and large for around 6'1". So I have to ingest about 300 calories an hour every single hour. Try doing that when you're nauseous from pretty much the start. I really feel nauseous because of that heat from the very beginning. So, and most of that, Rob, is liquid calories because it takes energy to break down solid food. So I'll probably go. I mean, I'll often make it to the 100th mile without having taken anything solid. Then eventually, I got to start taking in solids. The other thing you got to do if you're ever into distance running is the muscle begins to cannibalize itself after about 25 miles. So I have to take in 7 to 8 grams of protein every hour as well. So in that military operation like spreadsheet there's the calories I got to take in, plus the protein I got to take in. And then, the water, it's never just plain water because there's no calories in here. Yeah. So there's always something added to my water to make sure I'm taking in that 300 calories an hour.
Yeah. And I know we're just talking here, but unless you really put yourself in that place of thinking, man, that's a lot of calories to be consuming. And when you're so hot as well and your feet are sore, then to be able to keep on doing that. And I know my dad used to be a professional cyclist, so I know more about it from a cycling perspective. But if you say missed one of those hours or an hour and a half even, your whole race can be done because you can't regain that energy.
Well, the nice thing about an ultramarathon is you, with faith, patience, and the passage of time, you can come back from the dead. I have come back from the dead, and I've seen runners flat on their back for, throwing up, puking, not moving, in a medical tent for hours and coming back from the dead. That's something that was new to me because, as you think about it as a human being, ever since you were a child, when you don't feel well, when you feel sick, your parents tell you to rest. Yeah. Take it easy, lay down. You don't have an option. Like, I will have to, there have been times that I have been down, and I've been down. I mean, literally with my eyes rolling back in my head, passed out because of the heat or some kind of calorie deficiency. But I know if I just wait, and I start to rehydrate and I get the right, you can't take an IV or else you're disqualified. So there's no IVs. You can sit in a medical tent, but you can't take any kind of medical treatment other than, just water and food. So I learned that there have been, of my 7 finishes, Rob, I had quit 5 of them. I mean, threw my sunglasses off and took my shoes off and said, I'm not going to curse, but I say, I'm done.
Yeah.
And yet my team or my wife would say, just sit here for a minute and let this feeling pass. And it's a microcosm for life, that race, I tell you, because there's times when in life you feel like quitting, but with faith, patience, and the passage of time, we can come back from the dead. And I have on more than one occasion.
Yeah, fantastic. So let's go through some more detail about the mindset, maybe through the different stages of the race. Obviously, so you're on the start line and first time you don't know exactly, but you prepared yourself for the training. What are you thinking on the start line? Apart from let's just get moving.
Well, yeah, I mean, remember the race used to start at 6 a.m., which I loved. Now they started at 8 p.m. So you really are sleep deprived. You're supposed to rest during the day. Try resting. You know what it's like? It's like trying to take a nap before you're going to go to the gallows or you're going to go to the electric chair. Like, you're too nervous. I can't, I know what's ahead of me, and I know all the pain and all the suffering that's ahead of me. I can't rest the day before. So when I'm at that start line, one of the best pieces of advice I ever got, and I try to adhere to it, is start slow and then slow down.
Yeah.
If you in life, if you're out there thinking about starting a business, and I'm a businessman first, an ultramarathon, or a distant third or fourth. I mean, that's not even, I don't make money at it. But when I learned to start slow and slow down and then apply 3 simple words, and I wrote about it in that piece that I sent you: relentless forward motion. So I am not running 135 miles. There's times I'm crawling and walking and grinding up a hill. But as long as I'm moving forward, that's what I think about when that gun goes off is, Frank, no matter what happens, you can choose to walk backwards to the van and then walk back to your hotel and quit, but you're going to walk either way. You're going to walk backwards, or you can feel like shit and you can continue to walk forward toward the finish line. Eventually, it will present itself. And those are the kind of things I try to, keep in my mind as that race starts.